We're live.
Oh man.
Let's see. Did it work?
Says
Oh,
live.
okay. We are live. This is happening. Welcome everybody. Welcome to Taco Moto Co. No, what is it? Taco Moto Co. Tech Talk with ... And the dots tonight end with the Sheehans, Tracy and Nick Sheehan. These guys are favorites of mine on the Insta and all of the socials because they post very cool ride pictures. They post very cool pictures of their kids. These guys are very dedicated, very hardcore family folks with 3 kids. If you look over Nick's shoulder there, you'll see his 3 kids. And what's unique and novel about Tracy and Nick, if you bob your head, I don't know if it's gonna be right or left, but if you shuck and jive your head, there it is. You'll see back there that picture. That's the title picture also that we used for the I don't know what it is, the pre-screen for the live event tonight. The pre-promo picture, the wallpaper, that's what it is, the wallpaper. That is you guys on where is that? Tour of Idaho?
Tour of Idaho.
Was that end of day 4?
Mm-hmm.
I think. Yeah. About 9 o'clock at night.
Something Horn Mountain. Ram's Horn Mountain.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm guessing you guys were by yourself, and so you had to like put the camera on a rock and then run over and stage that, or was somebody with you?
No, I actually got a lot of comments on that on the Tour of Idaho that we were taking some pretty fancy pictures. I discovered that my helmet has this little place in the visor, and I could stick a rock and my phone in there, and it made it like for perfect selfie kind of stand. So we were able to get a lot of good pictures with that.
Okay, genius. So these guys live in the Northwest, and that's fascinating because there's so many good folks coming out of the Northwest. We talked about this last week when we had the Englands on, Brian and his kids, and they're out of the Northwest too. And here, Nick and Tracy are out of the Northwest. And so I just feel like there's a lot of good energy, good vibes, good riders, good family, good people coming out of the Northwest. So this is kind of exciting to me to have you guys on. And I was fans of yours when you did the Tour of Idaho. Before you did it, we spoke, we talked, we had a phone call, and that was very fun. And so I got a lot of, I got my jollies. I did not go, I did not make it to Idaho to do any riding the year you guys did it. And so I had to live through you on your experience. So we're going to get to all that. That's just a very brief introduction of Nick and Tracy. So I want to start our conversation with the first question that I have for you guys. What was your first bike? Maybe Tracy, you start. What was your first bike? How long did you have it? And how much did you love it?
So I am one of 2 girls in my family, and my dad grew up riding, not really grew up riding, but started riding when he was in his teens, and then he was super stoked to have kids, and he really wanted a boy, and I was supposed to be Travis, but he got me. So when I was 5, we came home from a trip to my grandma's house, and there was a 1985 or 4 YZ60 there waiting for me. And then he I don't condone this method, but I said he taught me on the go or get left method. He was on a CR500. And so it was like, all right, kid, here's how to use it. It has a clutch. This is how to use the clutch. Follow me. And we lived in California at the time and near Bakersfield. So we used to do a lot of desert riding out there. But I just remember being really afraid of those sand washes that were there. You know, you got to straight down, there's sand in the bottom, you come back up, and he would just be like, put it in first gear and go. I'm like, I can't. But you know, I kind of made me the rider I am today. And I love that thing. I rode the shit out of it.
You're in the rock spray. You're riding behind your dad in the rock spray of a CR500. That's intense.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure he didn't look back. Even my kids will be like, Papa just never waits for us. He just goes.
Knowing him, he doesn't let up.
No.
No.
Okay, so two girls, you got the bike. Did your sister get a bike as well?
No, she wasn't really into it. She popped the clutch on it a couple of times and flipped off the back, and so she didn't really take to it. She rode a little bit with us when we got a little bit older, but she didn't really, it wasn't her thing, not like me where I was like, I need to do this all the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. You got hooked on it. And then Nick, tell me about your first bike.
Let's see. So my dad, he grew up, I think he had a CT90 with a 125 engine in it. And then whatever hand-me-down was next, had some kids, and I got a dilapidated Honda MR50, 2-stroke 50 with a clutch at the age of 4.
Okay, I'm looking up an MR50. I just like those letters.
It looks just like an XR75, but it's 50.
Was that Honda?
Very.
Yeah.
That looks like a 80 size bike, but it's a 50. Okay, very cool.
Let's see. I think it's got a 12-inch rear, 14 front.
Yeah, it looks bigger than like a little mini bike. So you're a tall guy now, yes? You must have been a tall kid.
Yeah, I've always been taller than everybody around me.
I think all mini bikes, like in our day, we didn't have there was the JR50, but like they just threw us on anything, I never.
You can get a leg over it.
I never rode a bike without a clutch until I rode a KLX 110.
Likewise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so Dad started you guys off early. You're riding little mini bikes, so you must have just been on bikes up until the present day. Is that so?
Yeah.
Not for me, really. There was a little bit of time that I didn't really ride much. We moved up here from California, and then we didn't know really places to ride and things like that. And then I kind of met people in high school that rode, and then got back into it from there, and then started racing before I had kids. And then I had a big accident when my son was born. He was 3 months old, and I broke my back in the sand dunes. And I don't ride the sand dunes ever. I just went out there as a fun ride day, and I crashed and I broke my back, my ribs, and both my arms. So I swore off bikes and wasn't going to ride because I had to take care of this baby. And that didn't last very long.
And you almost killed yourself with a new baby. So you cased the dune, what happened?
I was a Razorback out Winchester Bay, and we had been jumping. I was on a CR250, and we were kind of jumping off this Razorback at the bottom, and then we went up to the top, and I just followed a bunch of people up there, not knowing the dunes, not paying attention. It just went straight off of it, and they said it was about 80 feet down and 100 feet out. If I would have actually crashed, it would have probably killed me, but I just kept it pinned, and so it kept me straight. And then when I landed, it dislocated my arms and then just crushed my body onto the bike. Broke my ninth vertebrae, shattered it. So I have 2 bars and 8 screws in my back, and then I have my gimpy arm that doesn't extend all the way because I have some bone chips in my elbow. But that taught me a lot. It slowed me down to raise my kids. So,
holy crap.
Yeah.
Okay, so I am super impressed that you've even gotten on a bike since then. Why are you still riding after that? What is it about riding that pushed you through all of that, got you back in it?
Well, actually, it was almost more when I gave it up, because I gave it up. I sold the bikes. I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. I want to take care of these babies and, be a good mom. And I just couldn't. I just couldn't. I just had this drive to go back to motorcycles, to go back to riding. That's what I was passionate about. That completed my life, essentially, being able to do that. So, and then my kids rode, my kids' dad rode too. So it wasn't like I'm not going to be a part of it. I can't just sit on the sidelines. I'm not a sit in the truck kind of girl.
No, she's not.
Nick, what does that look like? What is it? What does her assertiveness look like?
a lot of guys are jealous. They'll tell me, "Oh, I wish my wife would, go do all this stuff with me." And I'm super fortunate to have a wife that will, and I can drag her anywhere. She doesn't really complain too much when I go on like whatever elk trail and see where it goes.
No, there's
She'll
no
follow
elk
me.
trail. He will just turn and go through the woods, and then
Yeah.
we end up on wherever.
Right. But it's a double-edged sword because as a guy growing up riding, you always get to go out riding with your buddies, with your guy friends, and that's like guy time. So when I do bring Tracy riding, or she's like, "Hey, I'm going riding with a bunch of these guys. Do you want to go?" They happen to be a bunch of my buddies. I don't have that buddy time. It's I'm bringing my wife to poker night type mentality.
Yeah.
And it took me a long time to really not be okay with it, to embrace it. Like, I'm fortunate. She goes riding with me. She can keep up with the best of them. And I get to go riding with my best friend.
That is sweet. Oh, I just got a cavity at how sweet that is. That is very, very precious. That's very cool. There are a lot of guys who are jealous, and I got a couple messages from somebody who, 3 guys who were like, that is the dream scenario, to be able to go drag your wife out onto these trips. And it's interesting, Nick, that you talk about how it's a double-edged sword, like you said. I think there's something special about going out, I feel anyway, with my dude buddies, with my bros. We go out and we sort of get primal, we sort of like tap into like the ancient DNA of the brotherhood, of the fire and of the sword and the spear, and all of that sort of is happening. And that's a very unique time and opportunity.
You love seeing your buddies suffer. Like,
yes.
You can't, I want to watch you get up that.
Yeah.
I got to watch this. I'm not going to help you unless you absolutely need help. But with Tracy, it's like she'll fall over or something and her bike's in some precarious place where she can't just pick it up. Well, I got to go help her get her bike.
Well, it depends on what bike I'm on. Yeah, if I'm on the 500, I'm underneath it. Yeah, when I used to, I have the same though, and I think I could add to Nick too. The other part of that double-edged sword is he's got to maintain my bike.
Yeah.
So now he's got 2 bikes.
So much harder.
And your wife that goes riding with you on the weekends, or maybe goes to the track once in a while is okay. But when we put 4,000 miles on bikes, that's a lot of maintenance, on 2 bikes. So I am thankful I make dinner. So
the best part is there's never that awkward conversation like, "Hey, honey, I need some new plastic and graphics and tires. I need to go drop, $1,000 on my bike." It's like, well, can we afford 2,000 for 2 bikes? So it's not a whether or not we need it, because we do.
Yeah. So the answer is always yes, and then the only dilemma is, now we got to go buy 2 of everything.
Yeah.
It's doubled.
Right.
But everybody knows at the shops that it's going to be 2 of everything. Or now our kids are riding big bikes, which that's only been the last couple of years that they've been on the big bikes, which is another, you don't think about it. All of their things that come along with that.
Yeah.
Too.
Okay, so Nick, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Nick. You had something else?
I was gonna say, and also what he says about going riding with the guys. I think as of late in the last few years, we kind of have a mutual respect to let each other go with our guy groups or our girl groups, because I have a really solid group of girls that, sometimes I don't want to take my husband. We want to get silly and goofballing in the woods like little kids. And the boys are opposite, where they're just like, do it the whole time. But yeah, so it's good. It's a good balance.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the exact question I wanted to ask, because Nick and I can link up. We can sort of like, we're on a wavelength together. We're both nodding. We're like, yeah, the dudes go out and and it's caveman time and all of that's happening. And then that question, you just sort of addressed it. Do you women do the same thing when you're out on a ride? I'm not going to tell you what we do when we're on a ride. But it's everything you can imagine. It's everything you would imagine.
Oh no!
So,
before Nick and I got together, I would go riding with them too, and they were so freaking mean to me, and they were mean to each other too. But I got to see them in the raw, and then I just start, holding my own. And sometimes I would come back from a ride, and I would talk to my mom or one of my girlfriends, and I'm like, oh my God, I sound like a dude. Like I've been talking shit to these guys in the woods for the last 3 hours, and then I get into that, like, and being in the industry too for such a long time, you just got to do that to hold your own. But yeah, so my girl crews are, we have a solid, like, I think that everybody has like their solid little circle of friends, no matter where you go or what you do, that they're not going to complain. You're right. This, speed you want, technical, they can handle the technical stuff that you're going to take them on. And then we have that. I have a pretty solid girl crew.
Okay. So you're involved in a lot of the like women's rides that I see from time to time. In fact, you did Starvation Ridge with the crew and you guys won your class. How did you get involved in this community of women and how strong is it? It's always surprising me how big and active it is. Tell me more about that.
Yeah. So, and when I started riding in the Northwest, I started when I was 16 and we didn't really even have a women's class. If we did, it would be PRR, like motocross, definitely no off-road classes for women. And there were only like really a handful of us that actually rode. And all of us were really varying ages. Dawn Staub Piazza, who was just featured on Make Up to Mud, she was probably the pioneer of it. She was the oldest, but she was a bit older than me when I was 16. It wasn't people that I hung out with. And then, social media has a lot to do with it now, getting together and getting groups together. And there's a lot of Northwest, Pacific Northwest motocross girls groups and things like that. So we can share tips and places to ride and get together. And then Kaylin Benaroya started Dirtastic, which I was a part of last year. And that helped kind of create another atmosphere too, and get the girls really together as more of like a camping, let's talk about it, let's get to know each other kind of vibe. And then we've got Babes in the Dirt that Fox and Husqvarna put on in California, and we're starting to see there's one on the other side on the East Coast that Kelly puts on, and so there's a lot more like girls ride days. So we're starting to see that grow really quickly because we, as women, getting into a man sport, and also bikes are heavy and trucks are tall when you're trying to load and unload. That's probably the most intimidating thing, is to get a woman to go ride, is to get them to bring their bike to the track and unload it, or riding area or whatever. They're just afraid to unload the bikes. So it's nice to be there for each other to help with that. It's also nice that I'm like 6 foot tall, and that pretty much I load everybody's bike.
Okay. So no dudes at all are at these events. It's just all chicks.
No, there's a few of them that have a few dudes at them. But yeah, for the Dirtastic and the Babes Ride Out and things like that, they're all female. It's pretty cool.
Okay.
It's pretty cool atmosphere.
Okay. What is School of Moto? Is that something you're involved in?
Yeah, no, I'm not. They're up north of us from Washington. And I've heard about them. I've heard really good things about them. And they do clinics and classes too, same as Dirtastic and Babes Ride Out, and the ones on the East Coast too. They, primarily it's let's teach each other how to do this.
Okay, so a supportive environment for women to be with themselves and to experience the sport and encourage each other doing it without the, like, I guess the pressure or the eyeballs of dudes involved. Like, that's probably a thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of women think that they can't do what their husband can do. I mean, not me, but a lot of women. Or not necessarily what they can't do. It's just that when you're learning, you're not as fast. I don't want to hold my significant other back. I don't want to ride with a group of guys that I'm going to hold, I'm going to hold them up, or I can't pick my bike up or whatever. So being in that kind of motherly atmosphere that comes along with being a woman, everyone is really, really, really helpful to each other and kind of creates a really safe place to learn.
Nick, my mind is blown because that's like not happening when we ride together. Like all of that touchy-feely, lovey-dovey stuff. What is none of that's happening on my rides.
Oh, no.
How about you?
I'll load your bike if your arm's broken.
Right?
Yeah.
Years ago in Idaho, we'll talk about Idaho. Maybe this is a good chance to do that because I want to talk about that with you guys together. Years ago, I was in Idaho. We were doing some of the Idaho routes. Shout out to Joe Smith and the Idaho routes. And I broke my hip. I had this, man, it's looking back on it. I just did this low side and the bike kind of danced out from under me and I landed hip first into a rock and it cracked my hip. So game over. And I'm laying there and this is Nick, you'll appreciate this. I did not want my buddies to see that I was laying down. And so you know how you do that thing where you hear them coming and you try to get up, get on your bike and then stage it out like, yeah, I was just looking at the map, just seeing where we were. But I couldn't because my hip was broken, couldn't move. And they came up and they just, I kind of asked them to do this, but like they threw me on the bike and then off we went and there was no mothering and there was no, just the sweetness of how it must be to have women riding together. There's none of that. And that's why dudes like to go out on these adventures, I think, in my opinion, because in the workplace, you can't be like that. In my life, I can't be like that.
Right.
I'll get reprimanded, arrested, sued. I mean, there's like protocols in modern culture and social living where dudes just cannot be, what's the word I'm looking for, Nick?
We can't be tamed.
We have to live in a box and be tame and wear clothes and you know what I mean? Like all that stuff, the conventional life, we have to do that. But when we're out together on a moto, none of that applies.
The collar comes off. It's like a dog getting out the back gate. I'm free.
Yes, exactly. So I would love to be a fly on a wall at one of these women's events to just hear women encourage each other and cheer each other on, like, oh, you got this, you can get that girl. You know what I mean? Like, to me, that we're not doing any of that.
Oh, I know, because I've been there. I've been one of the guys on that trip that they're not encouraging me. And then
I've heard her shit talk other guys with the best of them.
Oh man,
try not to cry. No, I don't cry. Yeah. But the funny thing is if you're with your girls out there and we're drinking a White Claw in the woods after we just did a hill climb, we're doing the same thing. I mean, it's on a different level. Man, we do take care of each other, but the girls have some stuff to say too when the boys aren't around.
Okay. All right. I like that. So are you guys like loading box wine on the back of your bikes and then you're breaking out and having?
No, that's Nick's thing. Actually, he likes the box wine on the bike.
Yeah. If you carry beers with you, they blow up.
Pro tip. Yeah. If you are going camping on your bike, then you just take a bag of wine, so it's not as dangerous as having your liquor, and it's not fizzy, so it doesn't explode. So
yeah, I've had a wet sleeping bag.
Yeah,
because it leaked into your bag.
I had 3 tall boys blow up in my giant loop pack. Yeah. Good thing my sleeping bag was there to soak it up, so my tools didn't get wet.
Okay, let's talk about Idaho. Let's talk about your Tour of Idaho experience. There's so many dudes who do not want to do the Tour of Idaho or any of the Idaho routes because they are gnarly. They are ball busting. It's tough. There's a high demand of rider skill, grit, the intensity of it, the stamina, the physical strength that's required. And here you guys go to do this as a husband and wife team. Dumbest thing you ever did? You know what I mean?
No.
Like, let me see it differently. Just the most, was this the highest level adventure you guys had tried on bikes before?
I mean, the longest duration.
Duration, yeah.
The most remote, but
And
intensity, no.
But we've been on some, like, you know, just by ourselves, and a lot of it's like, because it's encouraged to post, then we post a lot more about it. We actually go on a lot more of adventures than I actually post, which is kind of crazy. When I look at I was trying to look at my news feed today, or Instagram feed, to pick some pictures out, and I was like, wow, oh, remember that time we did this? And I didn't even post about it and stuff. But so there are some places that we go that are very similar, very, very similar. I think the longest days were on the Tour of Idaho, and definitely the longest time. But yeah, I mean, we've always strived to find that like next level of something. And usually it's not planned. It's something that's just like, hey, we're going to go for a day ride. And then, you know, it turns out we're almost out of gas and it's getting dark.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Fun fact. Idaho has 76% of the world's rocks.
Verifiable.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's why it's called the gem state.
Yeah.
There are some rocks there.
There's a couple.
Very completely verifiable.
So the Tour of Idaho was, I'm going to have to give full credit to Carrie and Dave Barton for introducing us to it. Mm-hmm. It was just kind of said and mentioned. And I really don't like the name Tour of Idaho, because if you tell somebody about it without them looking into it, it makes you think of somebody loading up their KLR 650 with their boxes and riding gravel roads and the occasional Jeep trail from north or from south to north. It is the furthest from that. It is like going out and do 100-mile ISDE, ride 50 miles of pavement and gravel road, and then go ride tight single track for another 100 miles. Mm-hmm. And that's one day. And mm-hmm. then get up and do it again. And hopefully you get to the town before dark.
Yeah.
And
yeah. And there's not only that, there's just the element of competition that Martin throws into that. And so you're doing it kind of, you are on the clock, and then you've got some navigational challenges, and you also need to stay en route, and that's checked and verified later. And so you're combining all of this together into one event. How did it go? And then what do you guys have any plans of doing it again?
I'm not going to say no to never doing it again, because it's kind of a sore subject of how we stopped. So up until day 6, like middle of day 6, we both felt really good. Fatigued from riding 15 to 18 hours a day. I think our bikes, our gear, ourselves, we were dialed. Mm-hmm. We took one wrong turn, deviated from our navigation. We were thinking we were heading to a challenge section, which you have to complete 2 challenge sections, or a challenge section for the amount of people you have in your team. So we had 2 people, 2 challenge sections. There's 1 challenge section each stage, so each day. And we met up with Martin like middle of the day on day 4, I think. I don't know, one of the days. And he's like, oh, don't do that one, do the next day. Well, I had already gone over the route, gone Google Earth, the whole Tour of Idaho, all 2,000 miles of it, and had the route dialed. Like, I don't think we took a wrong turn.
No.
Up to that point. And then it turned into, because
it was something
3 hours of hard enduro.
Yeah, it was something we weren't expecting, because we didn't map it out. We should have stayed on that. We should have stuck with what we had planned and stuck to that first challenge section, and we would have completed the whole thing. But we didn't, and we got to have an adventure that was pretty fucking gnarly.
We then went from from there up to Gold Creek Lodge, just kind of on a whim, met up with some friends because we still had the time off from work. The kids had we had childcare, and we had like 5 days to burn. So we made it up to Gold Creek and then rode up top of Pack Saddle with 4.5 gallon tanks. And
yeah, that was my second proudest moment. I was like, yeah, we made it to day 6. And then I rode up Pack Saddle. Now we're
with
going
a license plate and turn signals.
Yeah, I didn't break a turn signal off. And I had the big tank on it.
The whole time you were up there, you didn't trash your bikes.
Oh no, they're trash. But
No.
I didn't break a turn signal off. No, it wasn't too bad. For what we put on them, they held up really well.
Yeah.
I was impressed.
It was fun.
Carrie,
I would do it again, but also I'm at that point to where like, okay, well, if we have 10 days, what else can we do with this?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat.
I'm really confident that we would have made it without that one little deviation. And I don't know.
Like our plan was absolutely solid. I wish we would have stuck with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you were tracking solid. You guys were doing really good. So Carrie Barton,
And we were
she
having
was the
a lot
first
of
one to
fun.
finish here.
What was that?
Carrie.
It was a lot of fun, you said.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Carrie Barton was the first girl to finish it, which was awesome. I was hoping to be right behind her. Carrie and I are really good friends, so that was going to be I thought would be a cool accomplishment. But I mean, it is an extraordinary accomplishment for her and for the whole women's riding community. So I'm really proud of her.
Yeah, I think it's incredible when anybody finishes it.
Mm-hmm.
Let alone Carrie. I mean, she's 5'4", riding a KTM 350.
She's an interesting bunny.
She just goes. Yeah.
Okay, that's amazing. So when you guys were kind of free agents and cut loose from the official route, you turned off your tracker, which was kind of a bummer because up to that point, every day I was checking in with you guys to see where you were and watching, and then I was mapping it, and I knew a lot of the places you had been to, and I was having a lot of fun with that. The remainder of your days you went, tell me again, where did you go? Pack Saddle, what is that?
Yeah, so we packed up. We decided, well, we could either finish the routes that we were on and keep going, or we could head north. And we actually rented a U-Haul, put the bikes in the U-Haul, and then headed up north to where did we stay? At the Ryan Hotel.
Yeah.
And Carrie and her crew were actually ahead of us. So we were able to get in there and kind of see them off for their last day, which was cool. And stay there at the Ryan Hotel and experience that. And then we went up to Gold Creek Lodge. And Gold Creek Lodge, there is a trail called Pack Saddle, and it goes up to the top. It's in a few of the enduro movies.
Is that Moto?
It's a really rocky peak that goes all the way up.
Or is it Moto 4? I don't know. It was the one with Rory Sullivan and Kevin Rookstool and Cody Webb. And they ride up to the top of it. And it is 4.5 miles of hard enduro.
Mm-hmm. It's gnarly. It's gnarly. We didn't. So that goes to the base of that, and then you have kind of an enduro section to go up to the very top. So
there's about 100 feet of car-sized boulders.
Yeah.
To get to the top.
Oh. And you guys just aced it.
We didn't
break a signal.
Well, we didn't go up to the top. There's only one person in our crew that we went up with that actually went all the way to the top. We walked up there, which is where my profile picture is taken. Actually, see over Coeur d'Alene and stuff. But so this time we got to ride all the way to the top. Luckily, there's snow, so I don't think we can get there.
Luckily.
Okay, let's talk about bike setup and preparation for the Tour of Idaho. Walk me through like your bike, your gear. What does your bike look like when you head out on that trip?
So as far as bikes, we started out brand new chain and sprockets. I'm riding a 19 Husqvarna FE 501. Tracy's is an 18. When we got hers, it had like 15 hours on it, and we had a smoking deal on it. So the bikes had maybe 50 hours on them when we started. Setup, I had suspension work done by Creft Moto out of Bend. It's amazing. You should use it. There's my shameless plug.
Okay, good.
Let's see, gearing 1350. So, or 1450. Yeah.
1450 sounds, yeah.
Yeah. So it'll still do 60 miles an hour on the pavement, and you don't feel like you're hurting the bike. But it's still low enough to where you can ride technical single track. As far as, let's see. We both had Baja Designs, the
Squadron Pros.
No, you had the Pro, I had the XL.
Nice,
then,
big dog.
Yeah.
The Trail Tech computers.
Yes, those are a must.
And Trail Tech computers are awesome for anybody that's not running them or has a solid group, or even husband and wife that maybe one or the other is slower. It's really cool just in general to have that, to be able to track each other and be able to see where you are, in addition to all the map stuff you can do with it.
Okay, so are you guys ever out of line of sight with each other and then relying on that to know where the other is?
Yeah, once in a while. And we had, they just updated it and we didn't do it, which would have been really cool to have, is you can do the buddy emergency beacon activation. And so it'll flash up there and say, like, one of us is lost. Usually it was being lost, or like not lost or falling behind, or one of us had to pee or whatever, and then we'd activate that because the other one's just ripping. But Nick said it would scare the shit out of him every time I pushed it.
Every time. She'd be like, I just want you to go.
And I was like, I
just
have to go pee. But yeah, we're out of line of sight with each other. And sometimes it's a little bit dusty too. So you can't really ride really close to each other. Or if there is some kind of, there's a lot of rocks too. And I've been hit with some rocks riding behind him. We actually rode me in front and him behind me, because I knew that we knew that if I go down and the bike is on me and I can't physically get it up because Nick's stronger than me, then he can come along behind me and pick me up.
It's amazing how heavy a tour bike can get. You get 4.5 gallons of fuel and then 35, 40 pounds of saddlebags.
Yeah.
And it gets heavy quick. But
we had a pretty solid system with that. It was really rad. And now it's kind of cool to have had that experience, and because it took like a day or so to kind of fall into that. And then now we know when we ride, how we can easily just jump into that and do a 200-mile day and kind of have our system set.
Yeah. Yeah. So then we started out with a brand new front tire. We were using the golden tire, the 216 fatty for the front tire. And then our plan was to change the rears out in Pocatello, which would be day 2. And so we just had whatever tires were on the back that we think you could get 200 miles out of. And I kind of wish we would have rode at home on them a little bit longer, because I took 2 tires that were pretty decent off.
Yeah. Well, they still have them for us.
Well, now they've turned into plastic. It's like 2 years later.
That's true.
Well, last year. So a year later. Feels a lot longer.
What are you running in your tires to inflate them?
Ultra heavy duty tubes. I found
them ultra heavy duty.
Yep. Yep. I don't like repairing the tire on the trail, so unless I'm racing, I'm running 14, 15 up front for PSI and 12, 13 in the rear on technical stuff. If I'm riding faster desert stuff, I'll bump it up 1 or 2 front and rear. Mooses, we haven't gone that route. I don't have anything against them, but basically Tracy says no, they're a lot of money.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Because you're buying 4 of them. Whatever you get, you're buying 2 or 4 of the same thing.
Right.
It's going to add up.
Yeah. When we have a solid, with the ultra heavy duty tubes, we have a solid system. So like, if it's not broke, let's not fix it.
Yeah.
For now.
Yeah. Good track record with that equipment. Okay.
Yeah,
I'm following you.
So then we ran the Moscow Moto Reckless 10, which a lot of people said that would actually be too small, but we actually love it. And we split the gear. So Nick carried a little bit of the heavier stuff. We have a pretty rad tool kit that we used that Nick put together with the Reckless or with the Moscow Moto Pico tool roll. Pinner tool roll. And that just kind of, one thing that people don't realize when you're packing tools is to pack them tight, or they're going to destroy each other and whatever they're in. So this little tool roll is awesome. So all that stuff rolls up into there. We bought a couple of things. We added a couple of things to the stock Husky kit, basically. And of course, some, additional like zip ties and bolts. And
I think the only thing we kept of the stock kit would be the T-handle and the sockets to fit.
Well, I mean, that's pretty much, and those pliers that we used to get the things out. So there was a lot, but anyway, in combination with all of that, we had a pretty rad kit, and we would use it to work on the bikes before we left. So like, there shouldn't be anything that you can't do with your toolkit when you're on a trip like that. You shouldn't be anything you can't do with your toolkit at home with it. You shouldn't have to be like, oh, I can only take my tire off with this certain wrench or whatever, So we had that. That was in
for about a month coming up into the tour. I exclusively used that toolkit, and then either tried to find a way to use that toolkit to make it work to do what I was doing. That way I had the previous experience to use it to do that, or I would add to it and then really keep tabs on what don't I need. And I have a multimeter in my toolkit.
Sure.
Yeah.
How big is it? Like one of those little, thin, small, tiny ones, or you're talking like a straight up electrician? Because you're an electrician, right?
I am. Yeah. Yeah.
So did you bring your Fluke 93 with you?
No Fluke. But it's made by Sperry Instruments, which they make absolutely awesome stuff. And it runs on a watch battery. It's about this. It's smaller than a phone. It's, I don't know, maybe stack 5 credit cards together, and then the lead's coming off of it. And they run about $50, and they will do everything that you would need a multimeter for any modern fuel injected bike to troubleshoot it in the woods. I carried 3-4 feet of wire, some connectors, some electrical tape, wrapped around a wrench, like 3-4 feet of electrical tape wrapped around a wrench to really minimize space. Same thing with duct tape, some silicone rescue tape, or repair tape for radiator hoses. I think in a pinch, you could probably get a header back together with that. What else do we carry? Safety wire, quick steel, one standard weight 21-inch front tube, and a bicycle pump, a small little bicycle pump. Mm-hmm. Our first aid kit was also really good. What was that?
Okay, so that's a very competent and complete toolkit. What kinds of trail repairs have you guys had to make over the years?
So on the Tour of Idaho, we get up, we're stoked to do it. A little bit nervous. Like, here we are. We're kickstands up on a 2,000-mile 10-day trip, and we are 4 miles into the route, and Tracy picks up a Volkswagen-sized ball of of wire,
Barbed wire.
barbed wire fence
Yeah.
wrapped around it, like sucked up into her wheel underneath the rear fender.
Almost
And
punched the brake line. It was real close.
yeah, like, so there we are, like, oh man, we're 4 miles in and here we go. And so we got that out and used those little pliers, and then we were on the way. At one point I did use the multimeter. One of the connectors behind the headlight mask came undone, and so it was kind of intermittent, so whether or not my bike would start. If I turned it to the left, it would start. If it was straight or to the right, it wouldn't. And it took a couple days to figure that out. We finally got the meter out and really looked at it. First I was thinking a fuse, but no. Let's see, a couple weeks ago, Tracy was out with one of her friends and the kids, and
yeah, we're riding this trail that wasn't really ridden very much, and my daughter was on the KTM 300, and we were kind of helping each other up these little switchbacks, single track trails, and my son rode the 300 up, and it got it all the way to the top. We were so proud of him, and the bike flipped back down and cracked actually not really cracked. It was like a hole, like a huge hole, like this big in the side of the clutch cover. And now that we told you all about how cool our kid is, well, I didn't have it with me. I didn't even have quick still or anything. So we got it up and flipped it over and realized that hole was in there. So I took everything out of our backpacks that we had, laid it all out. And I'm like, okay, this is what we're going to do. Take an alcohol swab out of the first aid kit, clean it all up, take a piece of a tea light, like the bottom of it, and smashed it flat to cover the hole, and then electrical taped that onto it, kind of a grid pattern, and worked. We rode the whole bike. We're all the way back down.
Genius. How many miles did that survive?
We were probably 4 or 5. We weren't very far. We were probably 4 or 5 miles in, but I mean, it didn't leak anything out. It rode fine. It was pretty rad.
Yeah. That's super
clever. Yeah, we might have been further than that. I don't know. I'm never good with mileage. I just keep going.
Just over that hill.
Just over that hill, around that corner.
No.
But.
Okay. So there's a question. Mike wants to know. Let me put this up here.
There was one a couple before that by Flipped 68. Why not run tubeless? We have had tubeless. Tubeless is an absolutely amazing system. Well, it allows you to run like no air pressure when it's sloppy out, or just have awesome traction. My issue with it is when the inner bladder that you pump up to 90 to 100 PSI, when it fails, you're going from I have a perfect rear tire or front tire to nothing. There's no air pressure and your bead is no longer seated. And I was on a dual sport ride, which I know they say not intended for highway use, but in my eyes, there's no difference from 60 miles an hour in the desert or 60 miles an hour on the highway. My rear end, the valve stem failed, went instantly flat. I'm side by side with a city bus followed by a log truck, and I go into speed wobbles tank slap with luggage on the back. And so I swallowed the seat with my butt, moved over to the guardrail in front of the bus, and then I put a tube in it. And then I was scared because I still had the same thing in the front. If it would have been a front, I probably would have died. So that's my issue with tubeless.
But on single track trails, if that's what you're doing, like we have Tillamook State Forest out here where we live, and it's all, lower, most of it is all lower speeds, technical, more enduro cross kind of sections. It can get muddy, routes can get slimy, things like that. Tubeless is killer for that. But especially on the Tour of Idaho, or if you intend on riding even log roads. I mean, can you imagine that happening on a log road and you're just off the side of a cliff too?
Yeah.
So any kind of higher speeds, they just, you got that. It's gonna, if it fails, could be disastrous.
So why not use those on the Tour of Idaho is if it fails, you're still having to carry a tube because your whole system has failed, and a bead lock because the tubeless system acts as a bead lock. Let's see. And then having to pack around the system or throw it in the trash while you're on the tour. So we went with the ultra heavy duty tubes and never had an issue. And they're just so simple.
And we really haven't had issues with tires with those tubes in our, kind of our system. If we do pay attention to tire pressure too, like where we're going and what we're doing, and run it a little higher if we're going to be, we know we're going to be out way the frick out there that we're not going to be able to get back home or, get back to the truck quickly.
Right.
So,
I think we beat that one to death.
What was the next question? Would we have packed anything else? Anything you wish you would have brought? More food on day one. That's up for me.
Yeah, Tracy, she gets hangry. I can survive some hours without food. She's got to keep eating, and if I don't remind her, like she's not hungry when she rides, I have to remind her, you need to eat.
Yeah.
Eat this.
Was there anything that you would have brought though, Nick, that we forgot?
No. Like our system, we went through it forwards and backwards. We had it spread out multiple different times, different variations of packing it for weight distribution between the back, between the saddlebags of the tank, and between each other. And we each knew where everything was on whose bike and whose back. And that's my only advice for anybody who wants to do the tour and do it seriously, which I don't think anybody would try and do the tour and not do it seriously.
No, there was I guess it's your level of seriousness, right? So there was a couple of people that I just felt like reading their comments or going into it, maybe they didn't think the tour was that serious, or they were just, doing it for fun, and they weren't necessarily doing it seriously.
Right.
But,
yeah. I wouldn't have brought anything different. No. I think I would have gone up a pant size though. Not because they were snug when I started, but you ride a bike for 2-3 days, you retain a little bit more water than normal.
Yeah.
So that just would have been
okay. That's an interesting observation. I never would have thought of that. So give yourself a little bit of room, little cushion in the tush.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I would. Let's see.
Nick, your preparation sounds pretty tight. You are an engineer. I know you're not an engineer, you're an electrician, but you approach that from an engineering mind, the mind of an engineer, which is impressive. Do you run all of your moto trips like this, or do you ever do any that are just like really spontaneous, or are you always this sort of planned out and carefully prepared?
I'm pretty sure Tracy will agree with me. The adventure doesn't start until something goes wrong.
Yeah, we honestly, I never seen him prep anything like we did for Tour of Idaho. It's like, hey, let's go ride 200 miles today. We don't even have tread on the tires. That's fine, or we forget something, or just like get into crazy. We've gotten into some just kind of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Tour of Idaho was a one-off experience, probably because the time, the money, the effort, all the investment of just doing.
Having that full thing, I knew Carrie was doing it, and Nick was like, "I want to do this," and he's got online and he started looking at it. He's like, "No, we need to do this," and I'm cooking dinner. We're in the middle of a house remodel, like that. We have 3 kids. I'm trying to take care of them. And he's like, babe, you want to do this with me? I was like, sure. Yeah, let's do it. Okay.
And then over the next couple of days, she's like, nope. Well, I'm already vested into it. I'm doing it. I was like, well, I'll do it without you then. And she's like, but
I
want to go.
Yeah. And then I started researching it and stuff. And I was like, oh, well, yeah, I definitely want to do this. This is rad.
Yeah,
But a lot of preparation. And bikes. We didn't even have bikes at the time that we decided this. Nick did not even have a bike, I don't think. We had just
okay. Somebody asked about
food. So I'm really sensitive to eating, and it's hard to find food in random little podunk towns that isn't like from the vending machine or that's fried or whatever. So
gas station corn dog.
Yeah. So we had, we kind of had a pretty good pack of, I carried some like BCAA powder and some pre-workout actually, and some supplements. But in addition to that, then we had like some little snacks and some goos and nuts and stuff like that. I think we started out pretty heavy on all that stuff. But when we got to each town in the night, we would ask wherever we ate to make an additional meal for us for the next day. So if we had, we tried to do sandwiches. Turns out everybody doesn't make a good sandwich. And in fact, like no one does except Smokey Bar.
Galen at Smokey Bar. Oh man, that was the best sandwich. She puts cream cheese on her sandwiches.
Yeah. And then because you need something to eat the next day, and you're usually out in the middle of the woods when you need that.
Right. I would say carrying enough food to get you through a full day.
Yeah.
If you can do that, then you get somewhere late, and then you're not eating a Pop-Tart because that's what the lady at the hotel had. We didn't do that, but that would be a possibility.
I need to eat. I need to keep eating. And when you're on for 10 days, you gotta, and looking back on it now, I actually was probably a little too lean when I went into it. Like I would have packed on a few more pounds just to have that extra, not a lot, just to have that extra reserve for any kind of endurance thing like that. You kind of need that. But for 10 days, you need something to, your body to feed off of when you're really, really hungry. And you're burning that many calories in a day. I mean, when we're on the bike for 15 hours, that's just crazy.
Yeah.
How do you, so you guys did 24 hours of Starvation Ridge, not the same, but yet an endurance event. How is preparation for that different than doing the Tour of Idaho? And I need to go see if somebody's at the door. It sounds like somebody's at my door. So hang on. Talk about that race. I'll be right back.
Babe, your hair looks good.
My hair looks good. Let's see. 24 hours Starvation Ridge. Preparation going into that, new tires, make sure your bike's good. You don't need new chain and sprockets or graphics or anything. Just a good headlight for at night, helmet lights, and a decently maintained bike.
And a good support team.
Yeah.
That's really important to have a support team. Well, and you're speaking to the standpoint of doing it solo. Right.
Which I've been on teams and it's fun, but it's so hard waking up in the middle of the night. Like, hey, Nick, you got to wake up and go ride.
Yeah.
That's so hard because you're already going on like no sleep because you want to see your team. So you got to try and put yourself to sleep for a couple hours, wake up in the middle of sleep, go out and, hey, you got to go do a lap. Here's 45 minutes. Go out and ride as hard as you can that night.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun doing I think it's fun doing the teams to wake up and do that and see people. I mean, like, I'm one of them. I can't wake up. So I'm like, I'm not even awake until halfway through my lap. Like, even though you try to get up earlier and you're like, okay, I got this. You eat some food and get on the bike, and then you're like, yeah, It's like, okay, now I finally woke up like 20 minutes into my lap. Now I got another 20 minutes. Then I got to go back to sleep. It's really up and down. So Nick has won Starvation Ridge, 24 Hours of Starvation Ridge solo. I have.
Well done, dude.
It was hard. 462 miles in 24 hours and 48 minutes.
For everyone that doesn't know about that, it's a local race near where we live in the Columbia River Gorge, and it is a race that starts at 10 a.m. on Saturday and finishes at 10 a.m. on Sunday. And you can ride it solo, or you can ride it on a team of up to 6 people, and then they put you in a class for that. So I've done 3 women's teams. 3 women's teams. We've won them all because my friends are awesome. And
you're 3-time class winner. Way to go.
And then I have raced, I Ironmanned it 3 times, I think. 3. Yeah, before I actually met Nick, I Ironmanned it. And it was funny because I worked at Pro Caliber, and the 24-hour race was coming up. One of my friends was like, hey, you wanna ride this with me? And I was like, okay, sure. I'm talking like no training or anything going into it, just like straight off the couch. And I was like, but I need a bike. And I asked the shop, hey, will you give me a bike? And they said, yeah, go. You can have anything that's used on the floor. And I go out there, and there's nothing but moto bikes. And so there's a 2010 KX 450. And I was like, hey, I want to ride this. I said, if I can kickstart this thing, then I'm going to ride it. And they're like, okay, girl. So I started it on the showroom, and then I literally like had one of the mechanics like look at it, put gas in it. I had no intention of riding all night. I just wanted to do it for fun. And I just full soft the suspension on it. And I rode. The neighbors to where my pit was started encouraging me to go another lap. And then pretty soon it got dark, and I was in like 3rd place and this was when it used to be a little bit bigger, like a lot more people would go out there. I think there was like 32 riders. And then once it started going dark, I was like 11, 10, 9, 8. Then I started, and then I was like, oh, well, now I can't stop if I'm in 3rd place. And so I put lights on and kept going. I rode all night. And then at 4 or 5 in the morning, I was like, man, I don't feel good. Like I need to just sit down for 1 second. And I passed out. Like literally just passed out. I woke up, the medics are there, and like I got blankets on me, and they're like, you're done. You're medic flagged. So I just exhausted my body like all the way out. Like I was not in shape to do that. But then after that, I was like, I want to do that again. But it was a good time. Yeah.
So you just are unstoppable. You break your back and almost die on the dunes, and you're back at it, and you get medi flagged out of a race, and you're back on it.
Yeah.
This is the kind of like determination that impresses me to no end. And then you do the Tour of Idaho. This is what I love about you guys, just how balls out you are. How do you guys meet? How does this energy combine? Because I believe like the two of you together could power like a submarine. What's it like around your house?
It'd be leaking, but we could power it.
Yeah. So Nick's dad
are your kids just hanging on to all of this? You guys are a comet, and the kids are hanging off the tail of this.
It's a combination of all of us holding it all together.
Yeah. Nick's dad, when we first met, said, I really like you guys together, but there's a lot of go and no whoa. So I'm concerned with that. And I was like, because we're both like wide open all the time. So yeah, I worked in the motorsport industry for a little over 14 years. And one of the guys that I worked with early on, he and I kind of clicked as friends, and would hang out and go riding mini bikes together. And then he always told me, you got to meet my friend Nick, man. You guys are going to get married someday. You got to meet my friend Nick. And at the time, Nick was actually in the military, and I think you were in South Carolina at the time, because I remember Joey going over to there to drive back with Nick. But so then fast forward, we both separately get married, and then we get divorced, and then Nick needs a job, and so he ends up working for me. And I always say that I got to check the references on my future husband that I didn't know at the time. So that was kind of cool.
And this whole time, Joey's like, you guys need to get married.
Yeah.
We're both like, no. I'm like, well, I mean, she's cute. She's a tall, hot blonde girl who rides and rides well. That's awesome. But no.
Yeah, and I had 2 kids and a house, and he was a lot of my no list. He lived with his mom at the time, and
I was single dadding it, getting back on my feet.
The parents. But yeah, so then long story short, we went on a moto riding trip and fell in love by the campfire.
I told her all you need is a bottle of whiskey and a throw blanket. And that's what she showed up with.
Yeah, that was fun. And we went riding with a bunch of friends. Well, yeah, and then that kind of started it. I guess we never. Yeah, and then he kind of moved in and never left, I say.
Yeah.
But
you find a good one, you got to stay.
Yeah. So
I'm looking at 3 kids on the wall. 2 and 1, right? Tracy 2 and Nick 1.
My 2 are Kylan, and he is 16, and Caitlin, and she is 14. She's gonna be 15 next week. And then Nick
Addison in the middle. She's gonna be 13 in a few months, and
getting into the teenagers.
Yeah, it's a wild ride there.
Which one of your girls rides the 300?
Caitlin. Her.
Yeah.
Okay. So she's on a 300. You're on a 500. This is impressive stuff.
Yeah.
Tell me about everybody together. What kind of adventures do you guys do? That's another thing that I wanted to talk about tonight is I watch you guys and admire you guys, how much work and effort you invest into your family, and then doing things that seems like everybody likes it. It doesn't seem to me anyway that you're dragging these guys along, kicking and screaming. You're picking things that keep them engaged and at home and together. Do you have any thoughts for families this is my question to you guys. Are you role models? Do you feel like you're role models, that you're sort of mentoring this great family dynamic that other people have tried to emulate as well? Are you getting any feedback like that?
I feel like when we internalize it and look at ourselves, that it's just one big giant rolling shit show. But if you remove it from our situation and view it from the outside, I could see how we could definitely come across.
I get a lot of people that everybody's like, I want you to be my mom, and I want you guys to be my family, or even my younger friends are like, you just adopt me, I'm just gonna go with you. And they do actually sometimes. But yeah, it's really important to us, and one thing that attracted us to each other, it's that it was really important to us to bring along the kids on the adventures, and we believe that it teaches you a little more than just how to ride a dirt bike, or how to hike a trail, or how to go canoeing or kayaking or snowboarding, and it teaches independence. It teaches, limitations, and teaches you about yourself, which I think that everybody has a hard time learning, in the beginning of life, in your teenage years and all that stuff, just trying to learn who you are and about yourself. And, not all of them love all of the adventures that we go on. We started adventuring with them when they were pretty little. Addison was 4. And so we always said, if you want to see the full spectrum of emotions from a child, you take them on a hike just to start out. And, that has kind of rolled into motorcycles too, or snowboarding. I mean, 1 second they're having the time of their life, the next second their pinky toe hurts, the next second they're crying, the next second they're happy and having the time of their life again, and all the way around.
The biggest thing we've learned is keep them fed. Yeah,
keep them fed. I literally have, same for me too, but yeah, I have a feeding routine. Like every 2 hours, we got to keep them. Everybody gets a snack. But, a lot of it is, a lot of people don't want to take the time to slow down a little bit, like Nick and I both snowboarded. Nick and I both rode and hiked and kayaked. But when you're doing it with your kids, you got to just take it back a notch. Or even with significant others, you got to really slow down to their pace, make it not, make it comfortable for them to learn what they're doing. And even
or they're not going to want to.
Toddlers, they're still learning that. And teaching them other things along the way that they're not even thinking they're learning. Navigation and mapping is a key one I'm trying to teach Caitlin some navigation and mapping and stuff, and let her lead some trail rides and stuff like that, which is a big thing too. And a lot of the girls get left kind of behind. They're never told to lead. I
think when husbands and wives go out, or wives or women go on trail rides, they are not navigating. They're not leading the ride. So they never truly learn how to do that. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's awesome. Taking them and they're like, all right, which way do you want to go?
Yeah. And then now they're pretty independent to where we can trust the girls to go by themselves and ride, and take a map or whatever, give them a loop and they can ride. But yeah, I bought that KTM 300 for myself, and I really loved that bike when I first got it. And then I was gonna sell it, and then I bought the 501, and Caitlin was like, "Yeah, I'll ride it." And first she was the funny thing about Caitlin is she's always afraid to do something, and then she'll get on it and take off and do really well with it. And I knew she would do that with the 300, and she did. Actually, one time she was letting the clutch out, riding away and going, "I can't remember, Mom, how to ride. I can't remember how to ride," and then just rides it till the gas tank's empty. But and then Kylan's, this a 16-year-old boy, so he knows everything about
everything.
And he's on the 250. You said he's on a KX 250.
Yeah, he has a KX 250.
Yeah.
He's a really good rider. He's a really good motocross rider and a really good off-road rider. If he can keep his grades up, he can get a little more practice. But and he rides that. It's an older 250, and he rides the crap out of it and follows us anywhere. And it's really nice to have him on some rides as of late that he can help me and Caitlin in certain areas, even if it's just loading the van. Sometimes I got my hands full with having your kids and focusing on your riding. Some guys are like, I got to remember to stop and get beer. I can't deal with my kids, And then Addison, we just got her a little CRF 125 big wheel, and she's kicking butt on it. It's got a clutch, and she's learning to ride that, and we're going to have to step it up for her pretty quick here on a bigger bike.
Yeah. I think she's got about a year on that.
Yeah. We're going to start taking them on some camping, overnight camping, bike camping too, which would be fun. I think
you mean camping off the bike, moto camping.
Camping, yeah. Nick took Addison just on a short little trail ride to a place that we know, and they went moto camping last year. I think she was on 110. But yeah, and then we've snowboarding with them. Being that we are a combined family, we do have other parents and have to share them during some holidays, and that creates a kind of a chaos with gifts and such. And there's always like this competition. And Nick and I decided that we every year are going to do an experience instead of gifts. And so the first year, the kids kicked and screamed about it. But once we took them and actually loaded up, well, the first year we went to a cabin in Bend, and then they snowboarded their heart out for 2 or 3 days. And we had family dinners every night, and we were just exhausted during the evening and stoked to go up the next day. And so we've done that every year since then, which has been really cool and a really cool experience to give them. And you'll ask them what they get for Christmas, and then they'll tell you all about the trip that they went on, which is really, really rewarding to us.
Right. That was the big thing for me. Was I don't remember what I got for my 10th Christmas at all. But I do remember that summer going on a family camp trip, all of us with the dogs loaded up into the truck or the Suburban in the trailer. And we stopped along the beach and rode at this place and that place. And I can do that with pretty much every family trip we went on. So we've really tried to instill that of experiencing the memories, especially while they're still young and they kind of want to hang out with us.
Yeah. But I'm hoping, that they're going to want to hang out with us later, and everything that we taught them will come back, and then we can have little riding buddies. Maybe someday we'll do a family tour of Idaho.
I don't know if I could do that much bike prep.
True. We have talked about doing a family 24-hour race, though. Would be pretty cool to have all of us.
Yeah.
A family 24-hour race. Mm-hmm. That'd be pretty epic.
Yeah.
So, Nick, I want to go back to something you mentioned a little bit ago, and that was how you were talking about. I forget how you framed it, but this is what the point I wanted to make based on what you had said, and it's this concept of when you go out with your kid. I think maybe it was when you were talking about you went with your daughter, just the two of you guys. One of the things that happens when there's a dad, typically teaching his little kids, is there's some sort of element of frustration, and then maybe even almost showing off. And I've maybe done this myself a little bit, and I've seen it. I've certainly seen it many times where a dad will be out with his kids, and then it's as if he's got something to prove that he's faster than them. And so just takes off, zips off, runs away, and maybe even shows off a little bit. Maybe his buddies are around. And that leaves the kid mad and frustrated and not having a good time. It doesn't feel like there's a whole lot of support there. And it's difficult to try to get that kid to come back another time. I'm familiar with some families who operate like that.
It took quite a while for me to really tone myself back and make the trip about them and not me.
About them. Yes, that is the key.
If you go into that mindset,
not about you, it's about them.
If you go into the mindset of I get to go riding with my kid, not my kid's coming riding with me. If you're going riding with them, it's about them. You're riding the trails that they want to ride. You're riding the stuff that they're comfortable on.
At a pace they're comfortable with.
Right. I'll follow her. There'll be times where I'll wait up, let her get a bit ahead, and then get on it a bit. And she knows that I do that, but I'm not leaving her. And I tell her, if you want me to give you any riding advice, any technique, or how I would choose a line, or different throttle clutch techniques, I'll gladly teach you that, but I'm not going to force them on you, because as soon as you start making it about work and you forcing them to learn or forcing them to experience something that is too hard for them, they're out. They don't want to do it anymore. But if you tone it back to where they're the driving force, though, they just want to do it.
Yeah, I felt like that last trip that I had with Kylan and Caitlin, it was kind of, it was my reward for all of the times, because Caitlin didn't just jump on the 300. I mean, she rode 110s and smaller bikes, and Kylan too, growing up with it, and they had the concept of it. But as of late, we've been taking them on some single track, and again, I got to be patient, let them lead, slow up my pace. And then this last time that we went out, they both were ripping up this single track stuff that I know some of the guys would have been like, I'm not doing that. And so that was so rewarding and worth it all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kate, Nick, you just did such a wonderful job. If there was only one takeaway from the entire conversation, if there's only one message or one thing that would land with some of the dudes who are watching, and I know this is like a dad thing, and I know the dads put a lot of pressure on their kids, and I see a lot of needless yelling out there and frustration on all sides. And I think if a dad could just hear what you had to say, and that is to tone it down. The whole thing doesn't have to be about you. That 7-year-old kid is not going to master this as a 7-year-old. They're barely doing hardly anything else with much physical skill. And they're certainly not going to master clutch work and brake work and operating the bike to a very high level. So if you can just slow your roll, dude, chill yourself out and let it be about them and not about you, everyone will have a better experience. That's what you're basically teaching us.
Right. If you take them out in there and try and teach them and be frustrated, they want nothing to do with it. It doesn't matter how much fun they have riding a bike. As soon as you're there, they're like, come on, you can do this. You can go faster. Just pick up the pace. They're done. Slow down. Make it fun for them. As soon as you can tell that they're not having fun because it's either too hard or you're trying to teach them too much. Even some of the most basic things, like make sure and point your toes into the bike when you're riding trails, so you don't catch your toe on a rock or a root. Maybe not that exaggerated, pointing them in, but don't let your toes hang out like this. And then you go right into, and squeeze the bike, and this, and that. And then they're like, well, I'm still working on keeping my toes in. And now you're piling all this other stuff on me. And it didn't dawn on me until that exact same thing happened. I was like, I'm trying to pile too much skill, too much technique on when you're still just working at that. And if they go out there and each time they end the day tired, but they had fun, they'll be hooked on it just like we are. Like my body's busted up, but I don't think I'll ever give up a bike.
And I think that goes to, pretty much exactly. I've taught a lot of women to ride too. And that's really just what they're looking for as far as guys that want to get their wives to ride, exactly that. And make her make it so she's comfortable. She wants to go out on those trails. She wants to ride with you. Take a couple more breaks than you would normally. Let her lead, follow her. And the cool thing about following a slower rider, you can work on all sorts of stuff on yourself. I mean,
wheelies, nose wheelies, logs,
balancing, logs, it's actually, you get really creative. You get really, really creative when you're riding a little slower. And I think that in itself has made me a better rider, just following my kids.
Yeah. We get enough of going out with the guys trying to go as fast as you can and trying to battle each other and, who's is bigger. And it's nice to just slow down and ride with someone who genuinely wants to ride with you. Because I'm not looking to create the fastest kid. I'm looking to create a young adult who happens to be my kid that still wants to go riding with me when they're adults.
So let's wrap this up. And I think we're doing it on such a high note because I think the takeaway for me anyway, out of our conversation with you, I know we talked about Tour of Idaho and tubeless and MREs and food and all that stuff. And that's valuable content. And people, I think, will get a lot out of this as they watch this later on. But I think we're finishing on a high note here. And that is the most important part, is how you guys are modeling in your own family. And then to us too, those of us who have kids and are watching this. Nick, I really appreciate and value what you're basically doing, is talking to the dad who has not yet learned this lesson, that going out with your kids or your wife is going to be a better experience for everybody if you stop making it about you. I get like that sometimes. I get like that when I take out a new rider. I in fact, it wasn't that long ago, and I just slipped into this mindset of like, I'm going to impress this guy. I'm going to ride fast. I'm going to try to push him to ride faster. He didn't care. He didn't care I'm a fast rider. That's like, it's irrelevant. And I'm doing more harm than good when I act like that. And something inside of myself, I realized what I was doing and I slowed my roll and then I chilled out and we had a different experience because I checked myself. And so dads and husbands who want to teach this sport and have other people enjoy this sport or anything that we're doing in life, that's the lesson for me anyway, is to chill the F out and let it be on their terms and not mine. I want you guys to have the final say. Let us know about the Sheehans and how you're raising your kids and how you're involving Moto in that, and then we'll wrap this up.
I don't know, babe. This one's all you.
We're just trying to raise good productive adults, and we think that the lessons that you learn with motorcycles and challenging yourself and learning something that's a little odd than the normal day-to-day stuff, that it's going to make you a better human.
Yeah.
I hear great things about you guys and your kids, and you're doing it right. Congrats to you all. Thank you for doing this with us.
Sometimes it doesn't feel like it, but
how as we finish out, I'm going to type in the comments down here. How do people how do people find you on all your social feeds so that they can watch these adventures?
Let's see. I would say for myself, Facebook. And
what's your Instagram?
Moto Nick 516.
Moto Nick 516. I got to put the little weird @ sign at the front of that, don't I?
Mm-hmm.
At Moto Nick 516.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then Tracy.
And then mine is Tracy Moto Realtor. I am a realtor, just in case anyone's looking to buy or sell a house.
in the where do you guys live? Vancouver?
In Vancouver, Washington. Okay, we live in Camas, Washington, but Vancouver's a near city. Portland, Oregon.
Yeah. Tracy Moto Realtor.
Mm-hmm.
What else? Is that it?
That's it. And then we also have so Nick actually built our Sprinter van, or we built our Sprinter van from a base model van up, and it has its own Instagram too. It's called Van Yacht.
YACHT? How do you spell yacht?
Yeah.
It's got a 1970s nautical theme to it, minus the cheesy helm and anchors and whatnot.
It doesn't have any carving, but it's got a lot of amber wood.
Van Yacht. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to follow that, and I encourage everybody to thank you guys. Thank you genuinely for doing this. And
thank you for having us.
See you guys out on the trail.
If anybody wants to go ride and hit us up.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my closing
Peace out,
note. Everybody.
Thanks for everybody who participated. Lates. I always blow this part. I should be ready. Like when it's over, this should be like seamless out, and I make it go longer than it needs to.